Hello ladies and gentlemen, Dave Dobbs here. It's the 9th of January 2022. There's a lot of noise in the background actually. I'm part next to the Bath Stadium Leisure Centre, or what, the big stadium here, where they've got a big rugby match going on next door, and it's Bath playing Worcester, and it sounds like Bath has won, which is a little bit unusual because they've lost the last 11 matches, but I think there hasn't been a kind of a tabulation of things this year, of leagues as such, or however they call it in rugby, I'm not too sure, but because of COVID, so maybe they kind of lucked at they've done all right, and now they've won something. By the sounds of it, there's a really big cheer going on in the background, so that's going to be an interesting night tonight in Bath. Anyway, so there's some good news for Bath there. And there's some also good news that, depending on which side of the equation you're on, Germany has shut down 3 of its last 6 nuclear reactors in operation, which means that 3 of its last 6, so it's only got 3 left in operation. It is some good news, and now we've got this whole thing coming into the European. Well, it's not going to go. I don't think it's going to be a European parliamentary vote. It's going to be a European Commission vote, and this is a big part of a lot of people got angry with the whole Europe thing and said that they had no power because the European Commission had more power than the European Parliament, even though the European Parliament obviously was a proportionally run system. It was all about trade really, and how the whole kind of trade relationships works between the countries. But the European Commission, as I kind of understood it, was the kind of panels that were elected by each government from each acting government from each country, that was also supposedly run by an electoral process, i.e. the prime ministers and the kind of our elected politicians who take the seats in these posts, or did. Anyway, this is going to come up into that aspect. So it's going to be basically the leaders. When they're talking about the European Commission, they're talking about all the leaders of the countries within the European Union, and they're going to decide whether or not nuclear is a green agenda. I think it's more complex. I'm not too sure exactly the extent of how far this if you don't mind me calling it utter greenwashing is going. However you want to see this, and it's such a good opportunity because I'm going to keep this in the title for those who come and want to do some and want to think about this as why, what is the, what is nuclear a green energy, and you've really got to think about, you really got to think about that with the kind of long duration volcanoes that we are now seeing spewing massive amounts of carbon dioxide. Now, at the moment, our carbon dioxide is about 0.04%, and we're said supposedly about 96, 97, something like that percent of all our carbon dioxide is naturally produced, and we produce about 3% of that, what is existing in our atmosphere, 0.04%. Not that that's a low amount, it's because the carbon dioxide is being sucked up by the environment. It's considered an acid. When it's in water, we say it's kind of like, do we call it ascorbic acid? What do we call it? Hydro. No, I'm thinking of carbonic acid. Thinking of water mixed with carbon dioxide, carbonated water. Carbonic acid, we think of it as an acid, but it's actually an oxidant, isn't it, really? It's oxidizing. It's got, like I say, 3 atoms of oxygen in each molecule. And so it can attach to say calcium in bedrock, two molecules can attach either side to a calcium molecule in bedrock and pull the calcium out of the bedrock, and that dissolves effectively the bedrock. It turns it into like a clay, and so it's kind of, as you release the kingpin, you're also releasing all the minerals, everything in the ground, everything's there. You know, you can see this, you know, why it gets sucked up and why it's such a massive part of the process of the digestion of this planet, so that matter as we understand it, life as we can understand it, can exist, because this is how the building blocks are released. If it wasn't for the carbon dioxide entering into the process, we'd have water sitting on this big rock floating through space. But without the carbon dioxide, we wouldn't be able to create this process of the digestion and the breakdown of the solid rock into, you know, releasing the calcium from the bedrock, producing the calcium bicarbonate, and then releasing all these minerals. That's why the carbon dioxide level is so low. When you think of a big, you know, in the Galapagos Islands, they went off like yesterday. You know, this is going to be a big eruption in the Pacific. You know, we've just seen La Palma going off, the biggest eruption, even bigger than what happened in Galileo's time, the biggest recorded eruption we know of. And you'll also notice that when we see these big volcanoes going off at these key points, you're going to see that we invent dwarf planets very close to them. When Kilauea went, not Kilauea, when La Palma last when it went off to the scale it went off now, this is when Galileo was seeing what he was calling Jupiter, massive. And then the next time is Isaac Newton, you know, and the next time after that is when, you know, William Herschel. You know, you're seeing these big patterns. You think about kind of like, I'm not too sure about the time of Neptune, 1846, how many earthquakes and volcanoes were going off, but you know, you're seeing that pattern. 1859, you certainly had the Carrington event and that sort of stuff, you know, massive events that we put down to either solar flares or something massive affecting the planet. You know, every machine that was electric, just, you know, people got inside them, got electrocuted, major storms from North to South Pole. We're seeing these massive patterns going on when these volcanoes go bang, releasing these massive amounts of carbon dioxide. And they clearly sit on these massive fault lines. When the fault lines shake, water moves in if there's water in proximity. And it's not just like water moving into proximity, there's got to be water. You've got to take away the pressure. You've got to take away the pressure. You know, and when you take away the pressure, then the water can explode. Instead of the hydrogen or the oxygen, you know, the oxygen can recombine with the hydrogen when there's no pressure, and it becomes explosive. If there's pressure on top, when the water splits, when it hits the magma, it can't recombine with the oxygen. So it starts recombining with other elements under extreme pressure, and it's causing kind of like, this is like I talk about the formation of zircon, where the water, where the oxygen, instead of exploding with the hydrogen, it either combusts with the carbon, and that's still a very explosive reaction, you know, and but it's still, you know, it's the hydrogen and the oxygen that are the key combustion in that process, and the carbon is the fuel. And you know, when you see the magma going up on a big volcano like Etna, what you're seeing is a massive release of magma, just like occurred with La Palma or Kilauea or the big Icelandic volcano, these long duration volcanoes, very rare. You only see them when we discover these dwarf planets. These things are all very close to us. They're all very close to us. We have to change our understanding, because the problem we have now is that we've created these stories, these big profit-making environmental stories. You know, when we see that Chernobyl went bang on the day of a massive earthquake, it seemed far away. You know, even though Chernobyl itself sits in the Ukraine, which sits just above the fault line that splits the Eurasian plate from the African plate. Now, the top of that fault line, where it really begins in the Himalayas, there was a massive earthquake, Now, that seems distant, but if that caused not only just vibrations, but if that electromagnetic energy caused a pulse, and it was that, the more the pulse that came. You'd often see with earthquakes, any cameras recording will go, the colours will break down, and this is the frequency, this is all of the circuits in the camera experiencing, if you like, a raised level of electricity, electromagnetic energy in the air. So the Schumann resonance is going up and down and surging. It's filling those circuits with power, and it's causing everything to kind of be a bit confused in the device. Now, if that was massive and that device was running, you know, what happened in the Carrington event was that anything that was switched off would just power up normally. Well, not normally, you know, all the telegraph systems, they had to disconnect, take the batteries out, or they would just get fried. But any systems that were just batteries were disconnected, the wires just filled up with electricity and they just worked. Everything worked intermittently and that sort of stuff, but anything that was running full whack just melted like a pump that is desperately trying to pump all the water into a cooling system, because it seems like everything's shaking, everything's going wrong. The worst time you could switch on that pump is when that is occurring. As the pump itself is going to go into meltdown. And then you're trying to take a whole nuclear reactor into, you know, there's different types of shutdown apparently in reactors, because you can't just switch a reactor off. You've got to go through a whole shutdown process of bringing down the reactor temperature. You know, it's called cold shutdown or something like that, and it just basically means, you know, you're not bombarding it with neutrons, and you're not, and you're pumping absolutely loads and loads of cold water through it at the same time to reverse the process of exciting the uranium. It's, you know, and then we see these nuclear reactors being built in tsunami hotspots, right where the last big tsunami occurred, near where I live, in Glastonbury, is Hinkley Point, and it's literally built at the point where the tsunami occurred in 1606, 1607. And that's round about the last time La Palma really went off. And if you consider where La Palma sits, it sits, in my opinion, on the real fault line that would run out where the Eurasian plate divides. Like I say, you know, this is all part of where we see Etna, Stromboli. These are all this plate division between these points. When the Congo volcano went off last year, round about, you know, March, I think it was round about March last year, but remember the whole magma just suddenly, the whole magma chamber just filled up, and then the whole cold air just filled up. It just came up really slowly. It wasn't like a high pressure volcano. It came up really slowly. So it came up quick, but not full pressure, not like Etna or Stromboli. You know, they're just releasing like millions of tons of magma, not slowly down the sides, it's coming out super high pressure, and it shoots up into the air, and the super high pressure of this magma at that temperature going up into the air, and all this oxygen around it, it was already under super high pressure. When it came out, suddenly releasing all that pressure, all this oxygen in the air, and all this magma gets burnt off. All the carbon, all the sulfur, and the silicates, they form into these tiny beads, these tiny like sand glass beads with kind of carbon and what have you inside of them, and they go to super high altitude, just hundreds of trillions, and the moisture condenses on these and creates these superstorms. And we built these massive dams, and have you seen in the last couple of days a massive dam has just collapsed in Iran, caused massive flooding. We've just seen a massive earthquake, like yesterday, above the Three Gorges Dam on the Sichuan River in China. You're seeing from satellite images showing you the same Icelandic volcano that went off in last year. Around about the same time the Congo volcano went off. And then it just carried, suddenly the Icelandic volcano just carried on going right up till August. And then La Palma volcano started. Long duration volcanoes. The last time you saw these was when Vesuvius last went off in 1944. And then La Palma went off in 1949. And Carlos Rada's massive prediction of Planet X coming in on the 20th of January, 1939. And then you get a massive earthquake in Chile, exactly as he predicted. But he said it would occur on the 24th, and it occurred on the 20th. It was 4 days out, but the full moon occurred on the 20th. This year, it will occur on the 17th. So we can expect big activity, big earthquakes on the 17th. Because all of these objects are levelling out. This object that's about to fly by us now, or potentially has flown by us now, I imagine it's going to be a reasonably big event. I can imagine, why has Germany shut down those reactors now? And so I've come in for a bit of a long speech there, because the title, for anyone who's coming in there that's going to see this title and is going to be coming into this debate wondering, why did Chernobyl and Fukushima both go bang on the days of massive earthquakes? And why was it pump failure in both cases that caused the problem? That's what you've got to look at, guys. It's the most horrific image to look at. But that's in immediate proximity to, that's the type of radioactive damage. I won't going to show you any more of the images, and we're going to come back over, we're going to come to this image now. We're going to come back to the astronomical sightings. And my take on this, for many of you, you can't go further, as I was talking before, than the grand solar minimum story. You can see that there's this big, you can see that if we go back to Galileo's time and that sort of stuff, we can see this was when the last peak in carbon dioxide was occurring, when we were getting all the massive flyby and having all the same things that we're having now. That's when our last carbon dioxide peak occurred, when we were going through the same amount of things. And you know, we keep, you know, this image here, this image here was an image that was posted, and I don't know if it's a recent. I don't know if this image is the most recent image. I think it is. I think that what he's doing is showing a series of images in this from over the last year, but this one here has just come in. That's my take on it. And please leave. I'm just gonna. It's you've just got to basically go onto this video, it's third phase of the moon, and have a really good look, because it's quite fresh up, and I'd really like you to go and have a look at it. And also remember that this is exactly what I'm expecting to see. This shot here, posted by Becky Lewis back on the 29th of March 2016. I made the video just before, and I said, guys, look out for it, you're going to see it, absolutely unbelievable. And then you see the pair. You don't just see this one, you see the pair. That was that one zoomed in. And this is, you know, you've got what's coming in now, and you've got what's coming in. Technically, you know, we you know, this same object is going to be just like Carlos Ferrada's time. You're going to get an earthquake. You know, we had that earthquake, the same earthquake that he would have experienced. We actually had that on the 27th of February 2010, and then on the 26th of February 2010, the day before, you had the big Icelandic volcano. This is that flyby. That is well, it's a bit confusing to say which one is which. I think I've got it better in the model, but basically one affects us. They always travel in a pair. We always see them in a pair. I've got loads and loads of shots of them in a pair. You know, I've been doing this for years, charting this, and this is like, these ones are like absolute clockwork, the twins, as Alex Luhan calls them. But so this here, that I'm of opinion, I might be completely wrong, but is the third phase of the moon is this is one of the, this is the next one coming in after the one that's goes out. Like I say, we're in the middle of two big flybys at the moment. You know, these are causing long duration volcanoes, and these volcanoes are not just these volcanoes, these massive volcanoes going on under the ocean. You know, you're looking at the Galapagos Islands, and you're seeing the volcano that's occurring there between Hawaii and the Kamchatka Peninsula, at the very northern tip of the Pacific Basin. This arm of Russia that comes down, but this also has many active volcanoes, Shevaluch and many other big volcanoes, the biggest in the northern hemisphere. And Kilauea is obviously the biggest in the southern hemisphere, and Hawaii. And it's surrounded by all this ocean. It goes way deeper. You know, you can get Everest into the Hawaiian volcano 230, 240 times. Massive. But enormous pressure on it. So it doesn't release in the same fashion. Because of that pressure, it doesn't explode out. That water, even with the water getting in through the fault lines deep below, massive pressure, so you don't get this explosive reaction, but you get this kind of like, you know, water combines with the magma, ultimately, underground, in a non-explosive fashion. It fuses. It, it's the formation of, like I say, zircon at those sort of levels. You know, the hydrogen, the oxygen is going to bond to something. It's going to bond to the silicate without an explosive process. It's not fusion because you're not actually, the atoms aren't changing. It's not like hydrogen going into helium. It's bonding. And you know, we have to. Anyway, let's staying with this kind of like staying with this. You know, this. Basically, these. You know, I hate kind of. You know, these things are happening. This is occurring. So it's it puts enormous pressure on all of us because we've put all these stories up to conceal this whole thing. We don't realise the way in which our minds are working and the way in which we have been played down the line, many different forms, if you like, of Christianity over and over and over again. We've kind of taken Christ off the cross and we've put the planet on the cross, and we're saying that the planet's dying because of our sins. And you've got to do X, Y, and Z. You've got to build nuclear power stations on tsunami hotspots and on fault lines to stop the carbon dioxide spewing out of volcanoes, the essential, sacred carbon dioxide that without our planet would die. This demonized gas that we supposedly create is our perpetration. And these are the prices that we must pay. This is why Bill Gates goes on about carbon zero. His big speeches. Through vaccinations we can get to carbon zero. So we've got this story, we've got these different stories flanking this thing, keeping us out from seeing this astronomical, the real kind of like picture of what we're seeing. Because when we start seeing that whole I just want to go through this. I know it's very annoying for all of those of you that know this, and I just parrot this stuff over and over and over. But just for those who are coming into this and seeing this from the start and questioning this this green debate or this greenwashing debate. I just want to bring you back to this because, shall I bring that? I'll bring that over there for a shake, and that might make it a bit easier just to kind of like, but just to kind of like, because we kind of know in 262, there were 3 days of darkness and earthquakes all across Asia, all across Europe, and all across Africa. It was the downfall of the Roman Empire, just supposedly as Jesus had predicted. Round about here, when supposedly a star was seen, you know, and ironically, you know, whether you want to call it Pluto, I call it Pluto here, and then, you know, Isaac Newton, and then we come over to here, and we come over to, believe it or not, kind of like, oh no, sorry, we've got to go right round a few more times, because we've got, basically, this is obviously, we're just getting further and further and further away from it here, until we start coming back to close proximity in kind of, like I say, Galileo's time. and then we come to Isaac Newton's time. So here we get La Palma, massive. Here we get La Palma, massive. Here we get La Palma, massive, and Vesuvius. Here I'm not too sure about the big volcanoes I mean, we certainly had all the sightings. That was kind of like 1842 was kind of round about the time when, or 1846, I can never remember which, but the was, you know, when the Doppler effect, and we were saying, oh, you know, objects seem to go from blue to red, depending on whether they, you know, the blue shift or the red shift, whether they're coming or going, to closer or further towards Earth. And it creates a kind of a colour change. And we were doing the same. We were saying all the same things in 2018, 2019. But 2018, when we had the biggest, bluest signs, everyone was seeing Jupiter absolutely massive, massive blue. No one could explain it apart from the electric universe that was saying, oh, it's all because it's all fired up because it's so supercharged and blah, 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 blah. And it was just like, well, it's just like right there, just like Galileo saying he could see it right there. And then we come over to 1930, of course, and the discovery of Pluto, and you can imagine it's 84 years between Neptune and Pluto. Exactly. You know, and if we can see this same pattern. Just remember, I just want to recover this kind of Newtonian science a little bit, but just to kind of like, you know, because it's not exactly, well, you've got to kind of do a little bit of research here, but you're kind of realizing that it's like 1781 that William Herschel discovered Uranus, which gave an 84 year. Now that's not exactly 84 years from, to be honest, it's not exactly 84 years from Isaac Newton. But what was interesting was that he obviously said it was an 84-year cycle, and then you go forward to 1846, and you go forward to kind of like the discovery of Neptune. And we're getting all sorts of crazy stuff, especially, like I say, 1859, the Carrington event, and lots of other sort of stuff going on. It was a big time. I know it was a big time. I can't give you specific dates on all the specific volcanoes. Normally I can, but my mind is... Anyway, we will have a quick look. I will just, if I see anything that grabs my mind there, specifically there. But the... certainly La Palma didn't go off then, and I don't think Vesuvius went off then. But so 84 years Uranus. And then remembering we're going to Neptune, and of course Neptune is going to be, to calculate it, all we've got to do is now go 2 times. You know, William Herschel 84 years, so Neptune's going to be kind of like, it's going to be 2 times, so we can work out what the orbit is going to be, because this, so we can say 182 is a 16. So we can say, yeah, 165 years. And then we're going to go to Pluto, and we can work out that out immediately, because we're going to go 3 times 84, aren't we? 1's 8, 2 is 16, 3 is 24, 240, it's like 252, kind of like that's the official thing. So you can see this kind of Newtonian kind of rule. And why do they have to do that? Why do they have to keep doing that? Why is it that Neptune has to have a 165-year orbit, and Pluto has to have a 252-year orbit? Well, you've only got to run it on solar system scope. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to let you do that if you want to do that. But you'll see that they're always opposite each other at the critical points that they need to be opposite. And you'll see the reason they have to do that is, you can imagine that you're expecting this thing to come round to the other side at at every juncture. If this thing is spinning around, going around our sun, but if it's still on the same side at the end of its cycle, then you are going to have to invent a dwarf planet on the other side. That's what are you going to call it? You're going to have to kind of fess up that you're not in a heliocentric model. You're not in a model where the sun's in the center and all the planets are going around. You're in a much more complicated model. But it's just kind of easier to invent another dwarf planet. But in the case for Mike Brown, who came up with Eris, and the one who supposedly killed Pluto, to make his model work, he has to, as I kind of showed you before, he has to make the perihelion point the opposite way round to the direction, or here we've got the Earth here, but let's bring the Earth over to where it officially is in the in our kind of present astronomical model. That is our astronomical model, if you like, with just up to Mars set in within what's really going on. And so our sun is moving forward, like I say, in this direction. And he's working on the assumption that this object, the Eris, is coming in from this direction and going back out, an elongated orbit going back out here in front, you know, in the front of the sun. That is, our perihelion point is its furthest point from the forward motion of our sun. Like I said in my last video, it's like seeing a caravan going along super fast backwards. And until you can start kind of seeing and correcting this, if you want to call it a mistake or a massive grand deception. Like I say, Mike Brown said he asked his 10-year-old daughter where she'd position it, and so she was one who actually told him that it should be there, and yeah, makes sense. It makes total sense. He's also giving the information away, really, as well. He's having a bit of a laugh here. Eris, the goddess of chaos, the one that wasn't mentioned, the one that wasn't invited to the ball, that got really jealous and really angry. I think they're deliberately giving. He's deliberately giving the grand deception away. Remember, every image, like I say, every image that you've ever seen of any satellite that's gone beyond Mars, that you're told has gone beyond Mars, that's been sent from Earth and gone beyond Mars. Starting off with what they call the first one, I can't think what they called the first one now. Well, maybe it even was the Galileo or something like that. I can't think what it was called now. I'll put it up. But anyway, all of them. Juno, New Horizons, you name it. Everyone that's gone out there has supposedly just gone straight beyond Mars they've used Venus. So that's Mercury. They've used Venus as a gravity assist or a slingshot. They've used Earth, come around to use Earth again, but not one of them has ever used Mars as the kind of to do a slingshot, and not one. And supposedly they've all gone past exactly that orbit Why wouldn't you take full advantage of it if you're going out that way? They've all gone in, because they've gone in and they've gone, at that time they used Venus to go up or down to it. But in that case, I'm assuming they went up to it. So they went in and up to Venus. And that's why it took such different varying amounts of time. But you can imagine all of the images of Pluto, where else did they go? Well, Jupiter and Saturn and Uranus and Neptune. All of these images, all of these shots, all require you to go beyond Mars and then straight through the asteroid belt and out to Jupiter and beyond. All of them. So imagine, there was a movie, I can't remember what the name of the movie was, where the guy's stuck, he's got to get to one spaceship from another because one spaceship's kind of broken down or something. It's a crazy movie, quite recent, last kind of like 5 years or something. Maybe you guys can remember which one it is, but he's got to get through an asteroid belt. I'm convinced they made that film just to say, guys, where's your heads? Do you remember the rock they found on the big rock that came from the moon? And it was just, everyone was looking at it, everyone was sensational, so sensational. And then one guy looks at it and just can't believe it's such a massive rock. And then they discover under close examination this petrified, it's rock, but it's petrified wood. It's got wood cells, it's got wood cells in it. So it's just like, oh guys, you could have at least found a rock that wasn't a fossilized tree. And so we have to now start saying, well, how did it happen? Well, there was a massive asteroid that hit Earth, and it kicked a lump of rock out of Earth. And that was the rock. Well, the astronaut brought back, couldn't make it out. Just like fantastic. I was just like, really? God, what? And they was, and then you've got sort of like whether they actually managed to get past the massive radiation that's supposedly the radiation belt that now they say, well, they want to send a man to Mars, but it's, so you have a massive community now of flat earthers that just, they're not all believing exactly the earth is flat. Some of the earth is massive, some of them, it could be anything. But it's just like, once you've got a space agency that has lied so much, NASA in Hebrew means to deceive. Once you've got a space agency that is built on deception, it's built on the process of making you doubt your story of what's going on, everything. You just go into a place of no position, of no opinion. You just become kind of numb to the place, so you don't really know where you are. And if you don't know where you are, you don't really know who or what you are. We don't know our place in the universe. And it's making us make really stupid decisions on so many levels and put up these enormous great stories to hide these massive occurrences that are occurring now that make us build nuclear power stations on tsunami hotspots and major fault lines in the name of stopping carbon dioxide spewing out of volcanoes. And in the time that I've been doing this, oh my goodness me, haven't I shown you some kind of like, well, just to show you, that is the Jupiter past perihelion. Jupiter will reach perihelion, its closest point, on January the 25th, 2023. So, have I got a? Can I just show you again where that was, if that works? So yeah, so if we come to January again, just seeing this big line up here. I mean, you know, it doesn't really mean that much to me because I struggle so much with the present story and what's happening. But, and how we perceive all of this stuff. But, I haven't got my right glasses on as well, so it's making it a little bit. 2023, is that right? Yeah, and then we've got January. What did it say? Round about the, well, let's just put round about the 20th or whatever it was. 2023. So that is the forward motion of our sun, and you can see Eris is right there. And the last time, you know, I run Eris down, and I said if you take it to its kind of perihelion point, where's it going to be? And so obviously it's going to be 1681. And I won't do that for you because you can do that yourself. I mean, I just did that before, but round about that. Sorry, 17. Is it 16? Yeah, 1681, which is Isaac Newton. You know, and so you know he's bringing it back to that. And but obviously to do that, he's got to make its perihelion point at the point where it should be at its perihelion when it's coming. Everything's coming in supposedly and coming around the sun and coming back around here. You know, obviously we've got it as a much more elongated orbit, but supposedly the sun is charging forward in that direction towards should I put the constellation names up? Constellation names, constellation lines. I have to read back, show. What sort of direction are we kind of more or less saying that there? So that's the official kind of like Pisces, kind of like yeah, there you go. That's the official direction that our sun is supposed to be going, as far as I'm understanding it. You know, but you know, you try and work out the sun, right? The direction the sun moves now, and the official direction the sun moves. And I guarantee you, most astronomers don't have a clue. And to get to this new model, to get to this whole new, to get to this, well, let's also show you, let's go back to Pluto, for example, just to, where's Pluto now? I've got to go further out, haven't I? Pluto's there. You can see the orbital track of it running up here. Let's go to the there's the orbital track of it. There it is. If I take it back to where it crosses the ecliptic, see, kind of like May 2018. Remember, we're all just seeing Jupiter, massive, saying, why is it big and blue? What's going on? This doesn't make any sense. La, 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 la. It's, and even this is not exactly as it is, but just to see the bigger pattern of why these volcanoes go off, and our whole story of, using this carbon dioxide as a means to drive this greenwashing and drive a crazy story. To drive a story, it doesn't make any sense, and it does so much damage, and it produces all these toxic materials that then kind of go and so often are used in things like warfare. I mean, a lot of depleted uranium, you know, in France they put it in things like, they literally put it in concrete, in certain concrete things like drainage sort of things. So you've got to have kind of like every house has got to have a kind of big drainage pipe at the front of the house, part of the planning sort of thing, as far as I kind of loosely understand. I might have got it a little bit wrong, but and it's got, you know, each one of those has a certain amount of depleted uranium in it. Every one of them, you know, threshold of every place you go into. They can also put it into cooker metal they make new cookers out of. You know, they can deposit a certain amount. They have to get rid of it, obviously. You know, and so they can bury a certain amount, and they obviously a lot of it can be used in weapons. So what are you contributing to by saying yes to this as an idea? Isn't it everything we want to move away from now and just say, guys, we're just like, where are we going with this crazy story? You know, all the dams that are built, you know, all the massive dam projects like built in China at the moment, all these massive dams so they can manufacture to the level and get the green credentials that they need so they can produce that much using kind of like, you know, hydrocarbons and the like. So how do they do that? They build loads of massive dams, and these dams are now failing and are reaching critical mass, and they just don't know what to do, and they've all been built in the name of producing massive amounts of electricity to meet their carbon requirements. And we're all going out buying these new cars thinking that these new cars, they consume 100 times more fuel than they'll ever use in their lifetimes, in their manufacture, than they'll that's it. They use 100 times more fuel in their manufacture than they'll ever use, as you know, on the road. It's like, no. It's just every aspect of it is just, you know. I had the engine in this is a BMC engine, and apparently India have bought the BMC engine, the old engine that is in this boat, because it's proved its worth, and they buy all the old ones. They bought the old Mercedes. You know, the body shell and the engine of the I can't remember which one it is now. It might even be the 308 or something like that. The old kind of like equivalent to a kind of camper van-y kind of size Mercedes van. And they bought that. They bought, you know, because it's proved its worth. It's like the old Ambassadors they used to kind of like buy, and all the Royal Enfields. They're just like machines that once you make them, anyone can fix them, and they're replacement parts, and they just keep going on. It's a car for life. It's a vehicle for life. Anyway, there's the kind of story on where are we now, by the way, in terms of a little puppy saying hello. Oh, sweetheart. Okay, sweetheart. Come on, lie down now. Say hello. Say hello. Don't growl. Say hello. Ooh. Come on, lie down. Go and lie down. Go and lie down now. Lie down. Trying to ignore it. It's going to be virtually impossible. So where are we now? We are... we now come to, we've seen so many flybys in my time, haven't we? Oh my goodness me. Do you remember when Dil Martin posted that one? That was around about the same time as my first big prediction came in. And it really put me on the map. And that's the object that's, can we see that here? Where did that one come? Because there's 4 flybys. There's 4. I mean, there's more than that, but there's 4 flybys going on here. I'm just trying to see if I can see where that was in 2000 and yeah. So you can see this object here. This is the object. I'm calling it Europa because that was the first moon of Jupiter that Galileo observed, and that's what he would have. It was not the one he would have seen. Ironically, he would have seen the furthest orbiting object. In actual fact, whether you want to call it Charon or I called them Chiron and Kerberos there. But the was we'd have been much further away from it than in his time. And you think in his time we had the massive tsunami, and like I say, that massive tsunami because so easy because of La Palma going bang. La Palma going bang means that that fault line, the Eurasian fault line, that runs potentially under La Palma and then goes out to the Mid-Atlantic Rift, which kind of like splits the Atlantic. Now, you know, I'm a great believer, I'm a great kind of, I love Dutch Sins, and I love much of his understanding of that Mid-Atlantic Rift, and he's of a mind that earthquakes don't move across it, and it's too far for, well, specifically earthquakes don't move across it. They either move up or down it, but it's too deep for them to really move across. But the fault line that runs out to it, that separates, like I say, the African plate from the Eurasian plate, if that was to shift, and the fact that we've got kind of like big volcanoes going off in the middle of the Pacific Ocean right now, you know, with this new volcano going off on the Galapagos Islands, you know, it's just like, whoa. These are all signs of major fault lines under massive oceans. And that's what you're playing with here. This is the nature of these times. Is this the time when you want to go full nuclear? Is that really happening? But you know, that was that one, and that was just that was on the just before, and I'd predicted this, and I built this new model, and said that there'd be activity on the 24th of November 2016, and the big earthquake, and well, there was two big earthquakes because it was in Fukushima again and in Christchurch. That was in Christchurch. He's standing on the beach and the land next to him has risen up 2 meters. Imagine if it was the ocean floor had risen up or gone down 2 meters. You know, this is the scale of the size of the things. And then we come to, what else did we have? Just going through some of the that was around about this time as well. That would have been the same object in 6 Jan 2019. That would have been the same object. That would have been the same object this time anyway. This kind of December, January time. That was the one obviously that caused, you know, when Kilauea went off on May the 4th, 2018. It blew my existing model, which was all built around a heliocentric model, and it just blew it clean out of the water. I just couldn't understand it, and that went on for a good year or so, me building models and always saying, guys, we just haven't got a model for this. And maybe I was doing them as an overlap, but then I started developing this new idea of seeing. I'd already done it extensively with my first model, but I took it to a whole new level and uncoiled the kind of the process of all of our planets moving in this long coil, in this kind of Nassim Haramein kind of idea, and try to elongate these flybys, even though I still couldn't fathom out how or why Carlos Ferrada's prediction was correct, how he managed to predict it, and how to make our heliocentric model work so I could allow for Carlos Ferrada's predictions to kind of work together. Because you can imagine if Jupiter, or whatever you want to call it, or this big planet X, whatever, is coming into the sun, it's taken 3,600 years to come into the sun, it comes into the sun, boom, boom, and it's gone again. You know, you can drag that out, but you've got a massive object coming up through here, like planet X itself coming up through here and coming right over the top of our sun and then bombing straight back through here again. Like, how do you... This is what our contemporaries, you know, Nassim, you know, Zakar Sitchin and all of our greats have kind of postulated through, putting it all through this heliocentric model. It's utterly impossible. And how do you slow it down? How do you kind of... You just can't do it. You can't have a 3,600 year flyby where the point of perihelion kind of flyby lasts from, comes in slowly here, and it just kind of takes from 1859 to now, to go all the way back round and give us all these patterns that we're seeing, that we can charter. You know, how do you you can't make it, you just can't make it work. And you know, if you're like me and you want to build the astronomical model, so when that sighting came in with just after the volcano going, and the volcano was still going, it was just like, Dave Dobbs' model is completely incorrect, this just doesn't explain it. And it didn't. You know, my model, I'd managed to give you all these flybys up to a point of the flybys over here and over here of what I was calling Europa, but these bigger objects that were coming in from the sun, and they weren't just, sorry, from Pluto, whatever you want to call this big blue object. They weren't, some of them were coming in and coming round, but some of them were clearly coming right, being drawn in right round our sun and coming round that way. What have you got, sweetheart? And coming right round our sun, and that's these two objects. And we come up to, we see them here. We're seeing Kerberos and Charon coming up here, and we can see Earth over here getting closer, and then we're coming to, oh sorry, I've got to go right back to 2010, 2011 to see Kerberos and Charon. You can see them coming up here, here and here, and that's 2011. And then we go 1 year and 13 days before, which is a 13-day difference in astronomical position. And these two line up. See this one now, the first one, and then the second. That's to say which two they look exactly like when you're looking at Becky Lewis's shot back in 2016. Difficult to differentiate between the two, but one's distinctly further forward. And it's difficult to work out which one is which, but I've got a funny feeling that I'm right in their positions with this. This model doesn't account for the fact that what's happened is, as Pluto is going in this direction, it's going forward in this direction, as our sun is going in this direction, as is planet X, that these both are orbiting, going forward in this direction. But they are locked in this orbital relationship where our sun and Pluto, whatever you want to call it, is travelling faster than planet X, slightly. And so it goes to overtake, but it can't break out of planet X's gravity. And so it gets pulled going diagonally across and then diagonally back, and that diagonal movement makes it overall lose speed in comparison to planet X. And then it will lose speed going into coming back, and lose speed going back the other way. And that's why you have this kind of orbital relationship going on with Pluto and our sun around planet X, but nonetheless they're all going forward in this direction because they're all locked in to an orbital relationship with the Milky Way. That's what they're all orbiting. And these specific objects have all fallen into their gravitational kind of like spaces, dependent on their mass, their speed, and their proximity to the other objects that they're also moving forward with. So this Pluto, whatever you want to call it, is going round this way, and our sun is going around in this direction, but it is moving forward in that direction. And as this object Pluto is on an ecliptic to this, is on a different ecliptic to the ecliptic our sun is on, and so as it's come down this way and it's crossed the ecliptic. So instead of all these objects dropping down to it and going round, they are now coming towards it, and they're coming much closer to Earth in each passing kind of in each orbit. They're not coming down at these angles anymore. They're leveling out as the whole thing crosses. So we have now this flyby that happened in February the 27th, 2010. That we have to come right forward now to I don't even know if this specific model will actually bring us up to. That was this time. Obviously, that was a Steve Olsen shot back in January 2019, just the very beginning of January 2019. And but we've of the pair again, you know, March 2019. You know, we constantly see them coming in. And you know, remember that shot? Obviously, that's going to be a big blue object that Brandon Corey Nagley has just posted it actually today or yesterday. You're going to see, you know, we're just seeing it again. The same sort of shot that Steve Rady and Matt Rogers have both sent me, or both, you know, both shown in videos and sent me via kind of like emails and what have you. And it's you know, and then what did we have after? We had that massive shot from that's the shot, that's what I meant, that's the flyby that I'm when did that come out? That was, oh look, another shot of the pair there as well. Look, great shot of the pair, except that the pair coming in now is they're going to be much closer to the ecliptic this time. No, sweetheart, no sweetheart. Go and lie down, sweetheart. Go and lie down. That's it, sweetheart. Go and lie down. No. Sorry guys, I've got to be a little bit firmer. She just like she doesn't know how to. If I just kind of don't feed it too much when she. I've noticed that what she doesn't know. Well, I mean, it's difficult to say, isn't it? But I'm trying to be a little bit kind of like. I say just kind of like. So okay, so that was that Brandon Corey Nagley shot. I think that was actually in late November 2000 and. Why does it say 2000? Was that in 2000? No, that can't have been in 2020. I'm getting a bit confused now by my model there. 12th December 2020, yeah, sorry. 12th December 2020. So that's, you know, I'm imagining it's going to be, it was still way in the northern hemisphere that year. Or, you know, yeah, that year. We can say that year now, can't we? Because it wasn't last year. It was just the year before. But that was still way in the northern hemisphere. You know, this is when we were having big earthquakes in Alaska. You know, this is really happening, guys. I'm afraid. I don't know to the extent of it, but you can see this as far as this model runs. Actually, I'd have to use that model just to remind you of just what you've got coming. I have to come up to 2011 and then come around to 2012, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and this one without overlays. I'll bring that now down to there without overlays. 2022. So you can see it syncs up again here. This one here, Kerberos, and then Chiron. I called Chiron the bigger one because Chiron was the biggest one out of all the kind of like, that was possibly the one that possibly it was the one that Richard, is it Richard Harrington? Or Harrington? I can't remember which Harrington it was now. But Harrington, the one who kind of like, who discovered the biggest moon of Pluto, and was also a kind of big influence to Zecharia Sitchin, running with the 3,600 year model rather than what Carlos Ferrada could never have given us all the predictions that he gave us and told us about 1999 and told us it was going to come back and that sort of stuff if he was in a heliocentric model. He just couldn't have. It's just no feasible way. You just got to really think, just lay it out. This is the great thing about having this astronomical software, is that we can just put all these things, we can just look at all these models through a simple astronomical model for us now, a simple astronomical model, and see if they work. And most of them are just like, oh my God, so you're saying that they just charged all these satellites straight through the asteroid belt. You're saying that, you start laying all these things out, you're realizing that there's big patterns that we're ignoring, and these patterns are making us make the most unbelievably stupid mistakes, like building dams in the most stupid places, like building nuclear power stations in the most stupid places, doing the most terrible things. And so anyway, coming back to sightings, some good news was that on the 24th of December 2021, Christmas Eve, Mr. MBB 333 posted this video where he shows this he shows the movement of if I go back to there, from there, he's suggesting that it's travelled from in no time at all, a matter of 24 hours, I think, 27 million miles, because whatever we're looking at here, we don't really know what it is that we're looking at. We're told it's probably Comet Neowise going by. I found it really quite interesting because I'm of the mind it's the other object. It's that we've got the twins coming by, and the first one goes and the second one goes, and what it is where this is being positioned is, if I come over to here again and I go back to, let's say actual time. I'll go to actual time. Okay, and we kind of see where that was getting positioned. Where's Earth? Got to go in a bit, haven't I? So Stereo Secchi, it must be Stereo Secchi B, is actually following Earth on the same orbital path, but behind Earth, looking at Earth from kind of that perspective. And Stereo Secchi A, even though it's not operational, it's looking at it from that perspective, but it's not operational because obviously it would just be letting too much of the picture go, so they're not going to let us see that. But it's here, looking at the Earth, and you're seeing it move from there to there. And he's just remarking at the so there's Earth and that's Venus, and it could also be an asteroid, like they're saying, like a comet, or a comet, what do they call it, Comet Leonard. But it's kind of funny, it's big. I mean, look at the size of Earth, look at the size of it. Admittedly, it's a lot of light, blah 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 blah, but it's very convenient that I'm expecting to see that, and there it is. But what I wasn't looking at that, obviously. If anyone's looking very carefully, I was looking at that thing. Hello! Oh my God, what the hell is going on here? And what's going on here? You know, it's just like, now, we've seen that in other images, this triangle, like it's some kind of massive device. We've had so many debates. People say, oh, it's a light, it's a light anomaly. But the thing is that the stereosecchi bead, it uses kind of high energy particle kind of receiver. Let me let the little puppy out. One shake. It's why I was fascinated when I saw it, because, you know, I can remember when I'd made that video about the Colburn Bible, and we'd seen this up in the sky. I can't remember who posted it right now originally. I'm sure maybe it was Steve Olsen who originally posted it, and it was just like someone said, what the hell is that in the sky? It looks like a massive lens flare. And it kind of like, we'd seen this other thing that looked like a very similar thing, caught by the same, by potentially, I think it was the same stereosecchi. This is Earth or Venus, one of the planets. I can't remember. But you could really totally, you could just totally see it's whatever it was. It was like it was protecting, like a sacred shield or something. And it's exactly where I'm of a mind that this object is sitting at the moment. This object that I'm calling that's going by us at the moment, the one that see the one here, the Europa. You know, it's difficult to, because I haven't got that all the exact. You know, this is much more about the sequence and the cycles, and you've also got to remember that this is keeping all of these objects that I'm flying on exactly the same angle, coming in, going out, coming in, going out. It's just about their timings. But in reality, as this object has got closer, and as the object they're all orbiting has got closer and closer to the ecliptic that our sun is on, they've got shallower and shallower and shallower, and that is happening now. It started in 2018, and it's just getting to become every, you know, like I say, we saw it with Iceland from March to kind of August, and then we saw from August till kind of like, oh, we saw it as the longest duration La Palma had ever gone. It was months and months. It was more than 3 months. You know, it broke all the records and spewed massive amounts of magma for 3 months non-stop. Guys, what, you know, you can see that Icelandic volcano, you can see it's glowing red from the top. It's glowing red from the top now. It's all about to go off. We're about to have the same run as we had last year. Big volcanoes, except that now we could have Vesuvius as well. We could get volcanoes we haven't seen going off for a very long time. We are in absolutely massive times. Certainly not the time to be pushing nuclear and the whole message that is behind nuclear, the fission obsession, the toxic obsession, the war it feeds. Everything about it is a toxic, bad way for humanity to be proceeding. You know, where are we all going with this? You know, this is not a green solution with what's happening right now, the type of flybys that we're getting. You know, and when we come back round to 2000 and to August 2020, 2022, sorry, yeah, we come back to this object. But what's actually happened is, this object turns out that it was the big blue object all along. It was what we've been seeing as Hydra. Well, I'm calling it Hydra here. It was what we've been assuming is Jupiter when we see it, massive. It is the Jupiter that Galileo saw. It orbits this big red. It turns out that Pluto is actually big red. It's the dwarf planet that orbits planet X. And these objects, including this big blue object, that has a 12-year orbit around it, or 11.89 year orbit around it. You know, it was the object that caused the. You see that it will affect us. Instead of coming out of this angle over here, it will come out much tighter over here and over here in 2022, in my opinion. Obviously, I might be wrong, but you saw we've been charting this thing. We've been charting all the effects of it, and so I've got corrections. Obviously, lots of corrections to make to this model here and there, subtle corrections. But if we go back to 2008. We can see it caused the Sichuan earthquake that completely destroyed China. You know, it was massive, completely destroyed, but a lot of skyscrapers, a massive amount of damage occurred. And imagine if you'd known that that was going to come in, and you pulled all the money out of the kind of like out of the, because you just knew there was going to be a massive collapse of industry globally because of a massive earthquake. You knew a massive earthquake was going to occur, and then you go back, and that same object causes the 2004 tsunami. Yeah, it starts here on the 26th of December 2004. It crossed at this point here and caused the tsunami, and then it takes 2004. It takes 4 years before it's ready to cross at that stage. In 2008. See how they sync up at different times because of their speeds, and they've all got slightly different speeds, but we can calculate all of those speeds, and then we can predict to see whether they pass or not. And I've just done it for so many years that this is when you have to put it into an astronomical model like this. There's no other way of building it, but when you put it all together, guys, you can predict earthquakes and volcanoes really quite accurately. You know, we can pretty much predict there's going to be a massive event on the full moon. And, you know, we don't know for sure, we never know for sure, but we can pretty much predict it. And we know that February's going to be big. February, March is going to be big, and it's likely going to be long duration again, because all these objects, they don't just come in and cross the ecliptic from north to south, they track with us. They're all going from east to west, or west to east, depending on where you are on the map and which side you are on the crossings going. But yeah, it's a lateral cross. It's this is going down. This is happening. So you're in this now, you're in it, you're just in this big debate. I hope this has helped you, if you were curious about the whole kind of whether nuclear is a good idea or not. I hope this has really helped you see that. And if I just come back to that point here, just to see that 12-year period that I often talk about with running from the time we discovered supposedly Pluto to now, and seeing how this has affected us over the last kind of 84 years. And in reality, all of these objects have just been orbiting Pluto. And just like my predecessors, I've made that more complicated over the years. So I've made that, you know, I started off with obviously trying to work with the heliocentric model to make all of this work, and it just didn't work. And now we arrive at this place, and we're kind of like we can see the full picture of what's going on. So that's it. Apart from one last little story, which I thought was quite interesting. Well, there was this. Let me just see if I can find it. There was this shot here, posted by Mr. MBB333, also on January the 2nd. And he posted this object here. Looks like a spaceship. But, well, that's much as I can really show you. I mean, it's very difficult to see. It's very blurry. It's really, you really can't tell too much about it, what it was. But for me, when I saw that, there was something distinctly that looked like an object tumbling, and that kind of looked exactly like the image of all those asteroids flying by Earth back in 2018, caught by just epic shots in the daylight. Just asteroids spinning thousands and thousands right next to the Earth, traveling at super slow speed, and then he zoomed in and you could see them tumbling in space. And that was December 2018, around about this sort of time, but 2018. Now I'm of a mind that those same objects, they're the objects in the tail of this thing, and we are very close to those objects now. And that to me looked like something tumbling. Possibly, it's very, that was the title of the video anyway, and it was posted on January the 2nd. There was quite a few interesting shots in there, really, I think, but that I found most interesting. And then oh yeah, I saw this story. Someone had posted this information about this. 5G, COVID, and RSET. So this was translated. NumaSquare helps you choose your 5G mobile offer with your. So it's just talking about the plans that are going to be available and which frequencies that you can choose. And I don't know, and about how they're kind of working out who's going to have which frequencies. I remember when, I'm sure it was David Cameron, made a lot of money for the government by selling off all the mobile phone bandwidths. And it seems like these same bandwidths are being bought up by the same providers. Can I ask you, just out of curiosity, in Africa, supposedly the way they catch a monkey is they drill a hole in the side of the tree and they hollow it out, and then they put nuts inside, and then you put your fist in. You have to do all this while a monkey's watching. Put the nuts down, and then slowly catch a monkey. Put the nuts down, arouse the kind of monkey's curiosity, and then drill a hole while you're there, and then just take all the nuts while the monkey's watching and put the nuts in the hole, and then walk away. And sure enough, the monkey comes down, puts his hand in the hole, grabs the nuts, and the hole's bigger on the inside, hollowed it out a bit more on the inside, so when his fist is clenched, he can't get it out. And then you go and he goes and puts a net or a noose or a rope over the monkey's neck, and either eats him or gives him salt and gets him really thirsty, and then lets him go and follows him to water if he doesn't know where there's water. I saw it as a water finding kind of like thing, but apparently they can do all sorts. Now imagine all the people that have, because what I'm seeing here is a digital blockchain. There's a blockchain. But I mean, I don't know what this system's going to be used for, but the most logical thing is a place to, imagine this. You're seeing this thing coming in. In most astronomical terms, whenever you're dealing with something coming in, you're invariably dealing with something also going out. And we saw when this thing came in, every piece of electrical machinery melted. Everything fried. Anything with small circuitry would just fry. Imagine anything within the range of the Schumann resonance, the kind of electromagnetic energy between the surface of the planet and upwards, and quite a bit downwards, and everything else like that. I imagine just like getting fried. And what would you do with what would happen with all the digital information? So imagine if you could put that all this. Remember, this all started in 2008 when this massive earthquake struck. That we didn't bring into our equation because we all got all these other stories that we were fed of why the financial crash happened, even though the big boys knew there was must have known there was a massive earthquake coming in, because I've been able to calculate this for a long time because I've been kind of seeing the patterns there. And when I built the new model, I couldn't believe that the 2008 earthquake, it showed up, because I didn't know that it would show up on that. I built it from going, because I had the 2004 and I had the present flyby, and when I looked at it I was just like, oh my god. Anyway, but I've built that over years and years. We've just pieced it together piece by piece by piece, and that is just pretty much the way it is. But I've always suspected they would have a plan to deal with what would happen if there was the equivalent of a massive CME or a massive coronal mass ejection, or what do they call it? EMP, electromagnetic pulse, that could just melt everything. Now imagine if we could say it was a war event, it was all kind of like blah blah blah, it was the enemy done it, whoever, blame it on someone so we can use it as an opportunity to get everyone to go to war. But imagine if there was a massive EMP equivalent event that wiped out all the electrical things, all the banks went down, and they wanted to safeguard against that. Now, a lot of people have bought into digital currencies one way or another, and like all things, it's knowing when's a good time to get in. But what's likely to happen if this is a carrier for all of these different kind of like Bitcoin platforms, digital currency platforms? Is this not built for things like Coinbase and the likes? All these currencies, are they not built to be used on this new platform? Is that not likely a scenario? Okay, not everyone's going to be wanting to get involved. They give it whatever's name, blah blah blah. But I just don't know. But I don't even know the validity of this this article, to be honest with you. It was, and it's been put together by someone who was kind of like, they said they wanted to the website, and anyway, I use the link that from a BitChute site. And but the guy often posts very, very interesting videos, and I just thought, well, what's happening here? Is any of this what you wouldn't expect it to be, really? A whole new high-tech digital interface directly with your body, so that though circuits might melt, all the digital information at any one time is also held in your body. How long it would stay readable. It sounds like you can upload, because these particles apparently can be positively and negatively charged, some are saying. But I don't know, but it's quite interesting, isn't it, that we're seeing kind of exactly what we're expecting to be seeing right now. And are we surprised? That was it, Philosopher's Stone. I think that's with the it's nice he's got his own website or something like that. So that's the link anyway. Philosopher's Stone. What was it? Anyway, I won't say the words I'm not supposed to say, but you know, I think about, for me, it's just like, it's all, you know, when people like David Icke and that sort of stuff talk about reptiles, I'm thinking about, probably like he's thinking about, like, kind of fourth dimensional entities that are affecting this space by use of technology of this nature. That's to me what a fourth dimensional entity is. It's very similar to kind of like how Muslims and Sufis kind of see jinn, these kind of like these entities that attack us, and some of them are kind of like this electric-like kind of effect. And they have to do that because they're not allowed to be here, because this is a sacred realm. And then literally not allowed, they can't just roll in here. That's why you don't see this massive invasion of UFOs coming in and openly attacking us, because we're highly protected here. So it all has to be done with our permission. You can't just be invaded by this sort of stuff, but you can choose. And sometimes these choices are economic. How many have done really surprisingly well with their Bitcoin? And now they've got all this wealth. You know, what happens when you can't access that wealth? Unless you have the right kind of bank account. Crazy times, guys. We're just seeing it. We're just seeing it, and I've got a funny feeling that, you know, from my message when I wrote Laughing Gas, you know, it's just, you know, your earth will no longer support duality. You know, and it's also, it said it's time for ego to have a life of its own, and it's going to be one or the other. And so, you know, it's going to be, we're all thinking the guns are going to come out and everything else like that, but actually they're going to be able to get a lot of people because of their wealth, their perceived wealth, locked up in many of these digital currencies. And so it's a real time to think how long before that all these windows might take place, and money you've got locked up in various things here and there, and assets and things that are going to be assets after this. You know, it's tricky times, but it looks like the networks are being sold off. Crazy times, guys. Crazy things to look at. Crazy story, and this looks like it's really going down. And they've just fired up the 5G, so it's all beginning. All those satellites must be in operation now, and everyone must be wondering which provider they're going to be going with. But you have to understand that going with one provider might mean leaving another provider. It's kind of it is a lot more than potentially an economic choice. You know, you're not choosing a side. You're choosing a soul. That's all this is about. And maybe they can force this upon us one way or another. But I can promise you it's never a done deal. Just to have access. Just to have access to your thoughts and your mind, and have someone who can potentially run a government, as in govern your thoughts, govern mente, govern your mind, doesn't necessarily mean, you know, when they're in your head, you also understand that when they're in your head, you are also in theirs. So it's an interesting thing to think that you can just go in someone's mind, because once you understand a state of duality is occurring in your own head, or you understand that an influence that's coming in is not you, it's a crazy feeling, but it's quite relaxing as well. Gently, gently, sweetheart. Gently, gently, gently. Shh. It's kind of like, oh, I'm not as mad as I thought, in a sense. Ah, no. Too hard. Too hard. She keeps nibbling my hands too hard. I try and let her do it a little bit when she's playing, but she's got to be really, really, really gentle if it's too hard. She's like, no, do too hard. So that's it, folks. Don't know what else to say, really. I think we're all just on the same page. It's not really, I don't feel as if I'm progressing any of this forward anymore now. You know, I think we've got it to a place, and I could definitely build this new model now. I think I'm still a little bit unsure now, back to a kind of a little bit uncertain whether it's whether I'm still of a mind that it's coming from the, it's going now from the northern hemisphere into the southern hemisphere. But it could be the other way around at the moment. But when I start building this next model, but the only way I'll be able to do it is to bring all those models back into line and go through it again with some of these new changes and that sort of stuff. But basically, it's not the model I've got at the moment is about still the closest I've ever managed to get to showing actually 1800 years of, and thus by showing 1800 years, really I'm showing you 3600 years of movement, but not from the kind of the perspective of our sun in the centre. But ironically, just on its own natural accord, 2 cycles is exactly 3,600 years. I thought that was quite funny. I didn't, you know, literally you add up from where it is now to where it is, where it was in 262 when the 3 days of darkness happened and all the earthquakes occurred and the big event that supposedly was predicted occurred. That was the formation of the Catholic Church and the breaking up of the Roman Empire, or the reforging of the Roman Empire. You know, in this new softly approach to use kind of like belief tools rather than whipping tools and chains, and to have to step up their level of control over humanity. You know, having to kind of like change. Even though it's not been that much of a change, but apparently we've come a long way. So we're just at another big change point, another big cycle point, another big point of the major hand of the grand celestial clock that we're really in, this kind of point, and we're all deciding which side of the equation, and many choices that we make right now have massive karmic implications. And when duality is going into a singularity on Earth in a situation like this, and basically what's happening is the fourth dimensional aspects, the invasive aspects of this Earth, just like our financial system, that if there was a massive CME-like event, they would be frazzled, that we would all be frazzled. All their systems of control would be frazzled, but also all of their, so much of the fourth dimensional realms that they create themselves from their kind of like their involvement in this planet, and how they exist and what they get from their process, kind of like our astral realms that get invaded, and whole societies are built within some of our invaded astral realms by what you could describe as jinns, you know. And when those whole things can get threatened by the same sort of celestial events that threaten our world, and thus threaten these other realms that are attached to the Earth realm, You end up with big situations, panic for reasons you can't comprehend, and you're in a story that you do not understand because the invasive aspects can't be seen, can't be touched. They're utterly invisible to the five senses and exist totally in feelings and in an invasion of your mind. And that's what we're in at the moment. And to try and push your highest aspect out, the techniques are to repulse your highest aspect away, to encourage the human being to make choices that are repulsive, that you see your soul on a high level cannot get. He wants to go with the highest vibrational story here because it's spent so long here building so much of many lives, taking the best and transferring those into higher realms because of experiencing them, coming here to experience them. You never lose love. Everything that you create here gets transferred to a higher, nothing's wasted here. It's all going to build something. You're here for a purpose. This is where the architecture of the fifth realms of existence actually really occurs. And many of you want to go through to those higher spaces when you leave this world, and you can't get through to those if you have karmic equations unsettled here. You just can't do it. You can and you can't. Okay, you can't do it. Of course you can do it, but but there's certain choices, certain mistakes that your soul does not want to be part of. And if the weight is too much, your soul will do what's called a Passover, and it will allow you to have your ego self. And just because you're tapped, you could potentially be tapped up to your ego self through this type of technology that we're seeing here. You're actually seeing for the first time the chains that have kept humanity in bondage. You are finally seeing it. They can't put the gun to our heads. They have to get us to put the gun to our heads. Because they're not allowed in this realm. This realm is utterly protected. So for the first time we are seeing that technology. For the first time we are understanding that technology. Just going to have some water. We can conceive how we have been invaded, governed, if you like, but potentially. Whatever happened, this has been the process in which it's been done. I'm of a mind. But we all know that now. We all see what's going on. Well, we don't all know that, but we're kind of like we're just at the point now where we've got to make a decision. We've all got to make that decision of how we're going to do this. But if we're not part of their system, it's going to be a big challenge. But to be part of their system might be letting go of way more than you want to let go of. But just know that if this is forced on you or anything else like that, remember that just because they might run a narrative in your head, if someone says put your head in an oven, you don't have to put your head in an oven. If someone says building nuclear power stations on fault lines and tsunami hotspots is a good idea, you don't have to back it up. Whoever runs this narrative, you've still got a choice of what you decide, even if there's a narrative running into you. you've still got the right to decide within yourself whether you want to go this, even if it means everything is screaming inside and you're like, yeah, I want to kill him, but I'm not gonna. And you're just going against that kind of like, you can still go against anything that's being said that you've got to go do inside. You can overcome it. We've been doing it for thousands of years on this planet, all the souls incarnating, coming to learn to deal with the duality of humanity. And that's what this is all about. It all comes back to that same old grindstone that we've all been dealing with on this planet for eons. Same as it's been for eons, for a long time. And this just might be a little bit more intense to overcome because they're so scared they're going to lose their control of humanity that they want to, well, there's a lot of souls that are quite terrified beyond the souls incarnating in humanity at the moment about what's happening. It's a big story that's unfolding, so big. And you are way more important in this equation than you have kind of been led to believe. Your existence here on this plane right now is, from the universe looking in upon Earth, is like a sacred experience. You are a blessed being. You are considered to be a blessed being. You are a race that, we are a race that incarnates on a planet that is massively invaded, and yet we manage to wage so much peace on this backdrop of this perpetual excuse to start another war and aggression. Earth overall is a very peaceful, it's a very subverted planet, but the human beings, as I'm understanding, are much higher vibration than we are being led to believe. So, I'm told unprecedented peace will be waged on my Earth. Don't worry about your Earth. I've already deployed my best. Unprecedented peace will now be waged upon your Earth. That was the message I got. It's going to be all right. NATO's desperately trying to do everything they can to kind of like entice Russia into kind of like into aggressive manoeuvres with, now they're just building all these missiles and that sort of stuff. The whole thing is just like this next NATO advancement is yeah, but I think Putin's going to just, who knows what's going to happen here, but it's all about the other trying to get one side trying to entice the other one into going into an aggressive space, because it comes back to this same thing of why I wrote Laughing Gas, being told you approach the wall and nothing gets through the wall that is of war. Nothing. For all your hate, all your depleted uranium, all your nuclear bombs, you will not scratch the surface of this. Not scratch the surface of this. It's seen so much bigger, so much more. And it's just like that is the real regulator of this world, and it always has been, and as far as I can see, it always will be. And if this is not happy, you can do whatever you like to kind of like take this world over and that sort of stuff. But if we could have a win-win-win situation here. That's what I'm really trying to tell you as much as anything else. It doesn't have to be so disastrous. It doesn't have to be so terrible. This could be the arrival of a new soul group, as I was explaining would happen, and many of the existing souls that are incarnating will go to a higher space now. They'll take many of their kind of all that they've created in this realm over many years to a higher space. And they'll still come back here, but they'll be coming back here from a higher space, and there'll be so much more understanding about how they create on a higher level, because they will be so much more, not just seeing that what they've created, but all the other people, of all the other souls that they've been incarnating with has created, all merging together. And that's what I kind of saw when I wrote Laughing Gas. What I was kind of like, what the realm I was allowed to see, and what we've been all working together to create. And you know, just wage peace through these times. Be the best human you can, and that's it. I'm so tired. Anyway, that's enough for me. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for listening in. I'm sorry I waffled on for so long, but that's it. Take care. Good luck, and hopefully we're going to speak to you very soon before this next flyby and just see how it goes. But good luck for it. You know, it is going to be what it is. We know, truly don't know. It doesn't mean I'm right with any of my stuff. You know, I'm just trying to build a model to try and explain it all and make sense of it, and try to convince people that nuclear is not the answer in this. Ciao.